A few days ago, I posted a video of Tim Walz having probably the most humiliating moment of his life, where on stage he admitted that his teenage son does not respect him and told him so to his face for losing to Donald Trump. And that blatant, open lack of self-respect led Tim Walz to going on CNN and getting absolutely wrecked by Jake Tapper. Now, if you haven't seen the video of his son, I'll link that at the end of the video, but make sure you watch this one all the way through because it is equally as embarrassing. You know, when CNN's Jake Tapper is trying to destroy you on live TV, you are a very unpopular person. As always, like the video and subscribe to the channel, but let's start with Jake Tapper telling Tim Walz, despite what he's saying about Trump's tariffs being bad, the United Auto Workers Union says they love them.
So let me ask you, because another group you're in touch with, the United Auto Workers Union, you have a lot of that. They have supported you for years and years and years. They were excited to have you on the Democratic ticket. President Trump argues that these tariffs are needed to bring American manufacturing back and to help American workers left behind in places like Minnesota. He has support from the UAW. The UAW called his auto tariffs, quote, a long overdue shift away from a harmful economic framework that has devastated the working class. It signals a return to policies that prioritize the workers who build this country rather than the greed of ruthless corporations, unquote. I have to say, that sounds a lot like language you would use. What do you say to the UAW?
Yes. It is what I would use. And here's the thing that the Democrats have to figure out. Donald Trump's language around this, he's not wrong that we've had manufacturing gutted. He's not wrong that we saw an outshoring. People of my generation were told, you know, there aren't going to be any manufacturing jobs, so you need to go to college and rack up student loan debt. The problem is Donald Trump's solution to this is not the solution. Now, UAW is right. Certain tariffs, if they're on to steel or if they're targeted correctly, do make a difference. That's not what we're dealing with here.
I want you to pay attention to what he said at the end, because it's so important and it illustrates everything people don't like about the Democrats. He said, Donald Trump is right, but the way he's going about it is wrong. And that seems to be their fundamental position about almost everything Donald Trump is doing. The borders need to be secured and criminals need to get deported, but we just don't like the way he's doing it. Yeah, we should cut government waste and corruption. We just don't like the way he's doing it. But that is exactly where the ball stops for the Democrats. You would think an entire body of elected officials would have more than that. They would say, we don't like the way he's doing it. Here's our plan for how we would do it. If they're admitting that they understand the sentiment of what the American people want, and they understand that Donald Trump captured that sentiment, then why is their party only focused on resisting and opposing and defying, instead of providing alternative solutions to these problems Americans really care about? And that's why they've lost so much support, because all of the rational-minded Democrats are saying, okay, fine, we agree, we don't like the way he's doing things. What's your plan to do things? And the Democrat response is one just catering to their radical base. We're not going to have our own plan on how to do things. Our plan is fight Trump, resist Trump, Trump bad, Trump fascist. And then they can't even resist in any kind of effective way. So both sides of their base, the side that wants them to fight and the side that wants them to come up with solutions, are frustrated and disappointed. And that's how you get to a 20% approval rating. Now, this is when Jake Tapper turns up the heat on Tim Walz and calls him and the entire Democrat Party out for lying about Biden's mental health decline.
Don't you think your party needs to acknowledge that President Biden was not up for the job of running for re-election and that this was a major mistake by the
He made that decision.
I know, but you all went along with the idea that he was
decision.
up for it and he wasn't. And everybody saw it and the country rejected it.
Yeah, well, look, history will tell us to go back on that. That very well could be the case, Jake. What I'm concerned about is learning from those lessons. I would hope we would never do it again, make a mistake, make sure we go through and get someone. But I don't know where it helps us going forward.
Now, this is so rich. We know Jake Tapper is just as complicit in this lie as the rest of them. But he's trying to pretend like, oh, he wasn't part of the lie and the conspiracy. He was an objective reporter who was just listening to what the Democrat politicians were saying. The reason he's now taking this position is because he actually wrote a book about the lies covering up Biden's mental health decline. So he's trying to cash in on the Republican base by making it seem like he sides with them on one of these fundamental gripes that people have with Biden and the Democrats. But we all see through it. Again, what I'm always reminded by about the Democrats, by the way that they covered up the Biden scandal, is it exposed such a hypocrisy in what they say their core beliefs are. They instituted a mass cultural indoctrination movement around the idea of DEI and racial equity, but yet they had a chance for 4 years to elevate a black woman to be the first United States president. And with the reasonable ability to do so. I mean, the president was legitimately not there. They had the ability to elevate a minority woman and be able to champion their perverse ideology. But you know what meant more to the Democrats than that? Having a brain-dead president that could be controlled by Obama staffers and the deep state to continue their scheme of robbing the American taxpayer and importing the third world to be future Democrat voters forever and retain control in perpetuity. They exposed the only thing that they really truly care about is power. Now, this next part is absolutely hilarious. It literally seems like Jake Tapper just wants to grill into Tim Walz like he does not like this man or something. Watch.
It was easy to know what a Democrat was. They stood with the working class and labor. Republicans were country club and for the rich. Today, you ask people, they don't. We have a 29% approval rating.
Yeah.
It doesn't help us any that Donald Trump ends up with a 25% approval rating. We have to get back to the core issues, that this is about making America prosperous and stable and innovative for everybody.
Well, what do you make of the criticism that one of the reasons why your party was so resoundingly rejected last November is because Democrats were gaslighting the country, saying that inflation was not a big deal, heralding Bidenomics. Not only Biden, but Kamala Harris was heralding Bidenomics, pretending that there wasn't a problem at the border. And then fundamentally, this idea that President Biden was up for another 4 years of the job, while Americans in poll after poll for year after year were saying he's too old to do the job. Your party stood against all of those things.
Again, I love the particular usage of your party by Jake Tapper, trying to make it seem he's some impartial reporter. It's like if somebody lies about you, slanders you, discredits you for 8 years straight, and then just says, nope, I didn't do that, and flips their tone because they see that there's some monetary advantage in it. It shows the level of grifting and lack of ethics that the people in the mainstream media really possess. People like him were the mouthpiece for all of these Democrat lies. But I love how Tim Walz is on here thinking he's about to get a softball-friendly interview, and he just seems surprised and caught off guard that Jake Tapper is even asking him these kind of questions. The Democrats have gotten so used to expecting baby treatment from their friends in the legacy media that whenever they get presented with a real and genuine question, they feel offended. Ugh, you're asking me a real question? What are you, Fox News? Now Jake Tapper tries to get him to bash his running mate Kamala Harris and comment on her extremely smug and disgusting "I told you so" statement, and listen to what Tim Walz has to say about it.
So we heard your former running mate Kamala Harris say she's not here to say "I told you so," although obviously that's what she was saying about all the Trump chaos. We're saying, I have to say though, what does "I told you so" really mean here? I mean, people heard her message. They did not vote for her. She lost every battleground state. You yourself have criticized the Harris-Walz campaign for being too cautious. She may have told the American people, she may have warned the American people, but she didn't do it compellingly enough to win.
That is the absolute point. And look, when I criticize, I'm criticizing myself. I own this. I'm part of the ticket. And somebody has to come up with a strategy. I think this is exactly right. This is the thing. Look, Democrats, it was a good night in Wisconsin. I was over there. We saw that happen. Donald Trump's doing this. Just to be clear, nobody on the Democratic side is celebrating this, and those folks in the street are not celebrating that Donald Trump's making all these errors. I think what the vice president's saying is that was pretty self-evident that he was going to do that. I do think the challenge for Democrats, and this is, I think, a structural problem that's going to take a lot more thinking, why, with all of that out there, did they not think we were any better than that? And they didn't.
What he said is what I've been saying since the election. All of the name calling, all of the vilifying, all of the character assassination of Donald Trump. Why, after all of that, did the American people overwhelmingly pick that guy that you characterized as the second coming of Hitler over you? That is a Democrat problem, yet they refuse to have any introspection about how they can fix the fundamental flaws with themselves. And every piece of moral superiority they thought they were holding on to by a thread was kicked out from under their feet by Joe Biden on his way out of office. And Tim Walz saying that the left isn't out here trying to celebrate bad things is a complete lie. In the video I made of his son humiliating him, Tim Walz is jumping around a stage, celebrating and thrilled about the decline in Tesla stock. Democrats are celebrating firebombing Tesla dealerships because they think they're so morally superior and righteous that their ideology not winning the election was such a cosmic injustice that they are entitled to remedy it by any means. The left has become such mean and vindictive people. They're just hoping more planes fall out of the sky so they can feel righteous about their election vote. They are praying that Donald Trump's tariff strategy fails and actively cheering against the possible resurgence of the American middle class. We've already seen clips of people like Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett saying that she was rooting for both Canada and Mexico in a trade war against the US, when all we asked for was increased border security to stop fentanyl from killing our citizens and some equal trade. I know I'm beating a dead horse because we've talked about this extensively, but the Democrats' Trump derangement and Elon derangement syndrome has caused them to become aggressive anti-American agitators. And it's all because their pretentious worldview didn't win out in November. Last thing I'm gonna show you is a US steel company that came out and said because of Trump's tariffs, they are rapidly increasing hiring. And this is resemblant of many factories across America.
We absolutely have had a couple people anxious about the stock market. But again, our goal is that we're going to sell millions more dollars, so we have to hire many more people. If we do that, we're going to hire them at very good jobs, with very good pay, wonderful benefits with the 401k match. True, there's some companies that have been buying T-shirts from Vietnam and China, and they're going to have to pay a couple more bucks for a T-shirt. And then the American consumer is going to have to pay more for a T-shirt. That's obviously not pleasant for those American consumers. But I think there's going to be an overwhelming surge of hiring in America as things level out, as American factories ramp up and people have to hire talent, buy machines. We've invested money in buying new machines because we're so enthusiastic, so optimistic about the future. That's going to start happening throughout the nation, and people are going to be leaning into the future. This is a very exciting time for the American manufacturing worker. We're going to be able to pull people from poverty into the middle class that used to not have an avenue. They had no shot at getting into the middle class. We're going to be able to offer them a shot.
So despite the left praying to their abortion god that Donald Trump's tariffs will fail, we've been seeing stories just like this from the United Auto Workers, from these steel companies, to farmers who are all raving that finally there are fair trade policies in place. The left doesn't understand that most American factories aren't working at capacity. Their talking point that it will take years to bring new factories back to America isn't the only strategy. If most American factories are working at 75% capacity, that leaves a ton of hiring room to hire more people right now, today, for these good paying jobs. And that's why every job report we've seen from Donald Trump shows an explosion in automotive and manufacturing hiring. We, as people who support Donald Trump, can see the end game, we can see the vision, and we can see how these steps are going to take us there. But the other side outright refuses to see the vision. In fact, they reject the vision. They're hoping it does not get achieved, even though it is one of prosperity for the country, because they are so insecure and fragile in their worldview. They are so selfish and arrogant that they would rather get proven right than actually see the country do well. And that's because these elitist liberals have wrapped their entire self-worth in their useless college degrees, in their perceived virtueness and moral superiority. And if they get their whole worldview proved wrong by some non-college educated, rural, backwater MAGA voters, then what does that say about them? If they're faced with the reality that their $80,000 of student loan debt to get a gender studies degree doesn't actually make you smarter or better than anybody, it actually makes you worse, that would be an explosion of their entire worldview and their personality that they just could not stand for. But let me know what you guys think down in the comment section below. If you enjoyed the video, make sure you hit that like button. Make sure you subscribe to the channel if you have not already. Turn on the notification bell so you never miss a video. And I will see you guys in the next one.